You are listening to
Beach in the Silence.
Let us move on to this lovely chalice. So, the cup is the weapon of water. It is the emotions and the intuition, to some extent. What does Libre say? It says, discipline the emotions. The emotions, our emotions, have to be controlled to some extent, or they will control you. If you have no choice in the matter, if you are a slave to your emotions, you have no will, you have no free will. Through discipline, we get that freedom. Just like the body, emotions are not evil. They are part of life. They are necessary and very good parts of life in a lot of ways. What do I mean by emotions? This is something that is watery. People use the word to refer to a lot of different things. There is one list of basic emotions, which is anger, contempt, fear, disgust, happiness, sadness, and surprise. They're like basic facial, supposedly universal facial accompaniments of these basic emotions. Come with me on the waters of imagination. Imagine you are a boat, or you're on a boat. No, you're a boat. That's more fun. And you are on the ocean of life. Emotions are thank you. Emotions are the waves that buffet the boat. Emotions come in waves. They are very strong. They can cripple people. Magicians can withstand these waves, these emotions, and remain upright, moving forward, still traveling on their course towards their object. In fact, the magician can use the waves to get there, aid in their going. Crowley says in Book 4, Part 2, the majority of people will find most trouble with emotions and thoughts which excite them. But it's both possible and necessary not merely to suppress the emotions, but to turn them into faithful servants. Thus, the emotion of anger is occasionally useful against that portion of the brain whose slackness vitiates the control. Basically, you can use your emotions to help with your will. They're not bad. But he also says that most people have trouble with emotions. Consider the ability of an emotion to obsess. In fact, our language itself reflects this idea. We don't have emotions, we become emotions. I don't have anger, I am angry. Everything gets colored by that when I am angry. Fear comes in and I'm afraid. I start acting out of my lovely animal instinct and run away or punch someone in the throat or whatever. I don't know. It's just so apparent. I am sad and nothing is worthwhile. This world is a lie and love is dead. If you can appreciate that from somewhat of a distance, like you would watch a play and their sadness and you can experience it, but you can also walk away, that's awesome. That's not what most people do. That's mindfulness. Emotions aren't bad, they aren't evil, but our relationship to emotions is what makes us either a magician or a helpless victim of circumstance, pretty much. It is kind of useful to distinguish between passions and emotions, for the sake of argument. Passions come from within. Emotions come from without. Passions are the emotional energy of a magician, and emotions are demons attacking the circle. So Crowley says, in his usual hyperbole, every emotion is an obsession. The most horrible of blasphemies is to attribute any emotion to God in the macrocosm, or to the pure soul in the microcosm. How can that which is self-existent, complete, be moved? But if the point itself could be moved, it would cease to be itself. For position is the only attribute of a point. The magician must therefore make himself absolutely free in this respect. It's the constant practice of demons to attempt to terrify, to shock, to disgust, to allure. There is no emotion which does not leave a mark on the mind, and all marks are bad marks. Hope and fear are only opposite phases of a single emotion, and both are incompatible with the purity of a soul. With the passions of man, the case is somewhat different, as they are functions of his own will. They need to be disciplined, not suppressed. But the emotion is impressed from without. It's an invasion of the circle. It's a useful way to think of it, and suppose there was a demon of emotion attacking our circle. This is where the dagger is actually useful in terms of emotion. So he continues, and he says, one may now go on to consider the use of the sword in purifying emotions into perceptions. It's the function of the cup to interpret perceptions of the tendencies. He's talking in terms of like Buddhist skandhas, but the cup interprets perceptions. It receives these things. The sword frees the perception from the web of emotion. Again, it's the constant practice of demons to attempt to terrify, shock, disgust, or allure. Against all this, he must oppose the steel of the sword. If he has got rid of the ego idea, this task is comparatively easy. Until he has done so, it will be almost impossible. So says the Dhammapada, me he abused, me he beat, he robbed me, he insulted me. In whom such thoughts find harborage, hatred will never cease to be. It is also written in the Book of the Law, chapter 3:11, let the woman be girt with a sword before me. Yet this refers to the arming of Vedana with Sanga, the overcoming of emotion by clarity of perception. It's kind of abstract, and Crowley, he gives examples of how emotions cloud perception in Magic Without Tears. He says, a dagger may be sharp or blunt, straight or crooked, but it is not wicked-looking, or even trusty, except insofar as the quality of the steel makes it so. A cliff is not frowning or menacing. A snow-covered glacier is not treacherous. To say so only means that the alpine clubmen and other persons ignorant of mountain craft are unable to detect the position of covered crevices. All such points you must decide for yourself. The important thing is you should challenge any such ideas. Above all, do not avoid or slur unwelcome trains of thought or distressing problems. Don't say he passed on when you mean he died. And don't call a spade a bloody shovel. So that is kind of a exaggerated way of showing how emotion creeps into our perceptions, and we basically see, mountains as treacherous, and they are not. That depends on your skill. Being able to fit a joke in about alpine clubmen, because that's what he does. I would say there's also this idea of cultivating positive emotions, such as gratitude, enthusiasm, joy, that kind of thing. But then Crowley would say these are passions that are cultivated. They are just natural outgrowths of the self. Beauty and strength, leaping laughter and delicious languor, force and fire. He says these are the marks of someone who's doing their will. That's just what they do. So emotions can be balanced and they can be unbalanced. So Liber says unbalanced water, this cup, this weapon in our cells, shows itself as idleness and changeability. So idleness is stagnation. Consider how a stagnant pool of water collects muck. It's gross. It is also a thriving ecosystem, but that is not the point I'm trying to make. Idleness, water sitting still, and changeability, which is not being firm and steadfast in your actions, beliefs, opinions, or desires. This is kind of the water that just moves wherever it's pushed. No will of its own. Basically, these are ways that you get stuck in emotion. You're saying you're angry the whole day because someone said something mean. You're stagnant. Or you are basically being buffeted. You're being wishy-washy, exactly. You're being buffeted by the waves of emotion on the ocean of life. So what is balanced water? It is being flexible. And he also says attentive to images, which is another aspect of water that I haven't really talked about. Flexible is this idea that water flows and it adapts to change. In rivers, it bends around rocks. It's elastic. A magician is someone who is flexible. They adapt to change. They're not stiff. They're not stagnant. They're not overly flexible. They adapt. Attentive to images refers to this idea that water is related to the intuition. Being attentive to images does not refer to reading every billboard. It refers to this idea of being aware of the power of symbols and the unconscious, as we would say nowadays. So fantasy, reverie, dreams, scrying, astral stuff. That is the power of water. Crowley says in Liber Aleph, neglect not simple introspections, therefore, but give yet greater heed unto those dreams and fantasies, those gestures and manners unconscious, and of undiscovered cause which betoken thee. The idea is that the magician's in touch with her unconscious through scrying, through dream work, through astral work, by generally being attentive to symbols that occur within the mind, and I guess around you too. I would say the promptings of the unconscious come in the form of feelings and symbols, and they can be interpreted with a sharp dagger if you have sharpened it. So what have I said about water? Discipline the emotions, be centered and balanced and not reactive against demons attacking your circle. If you're angry, be aware of that. You actually have power to control that. If you are sad, you have sadness. Be mindful of it. Even appreciate it, like I was saying. But don't be consumed by it, obsessed by it. Don't become identified with it. Use the sword or the dagger to clarify things, cutting perception away from the web of emotion. Beware of imbalance. Be neither idle nor changeable, but be adaptive and flexible.